Harry, welcome. How you doing? You must be buzzing after last night because Chelsea have done the double over Tottenham Hotspur. You've done the double over Mauricio Pochettino's former club.
And in other news, water is wet, Harry. I mean, that's what happens, isn't it? Chelsea beat Tottenham. If you look back over the years, this isn't about, Tottenham fans often like to talk about Chelsea and they always say things like, pre-Abramovich. We were battering them, whether it was Mark Stein scoring a winner, Bernard Lambert scoring a winner, George Weah scoring a winner, or in the Abramovich era, Lampard loved to score against Tottenham. So, yes, it's obviously a wonderful feeling to beat them. It's obviously brilliant to do the double over them. But I must be totally honest with you. I am very honest and open with you about how poor I think Chelsea are and how limited a manager I think Mauricio Pochettino is. There wasn't a doubt in my mind that Chelsea would do the double over Tottenham. It was always going to happen. We are better than them. We do beat them. When it most matters, they seem to recoil. And let's be totally honest as well, their form. Nobody's really talking about it, but they love conceding goals. It seems to be like their favourite thing to do. They went away to Newcastle United. They got absolutely battered. I feel like there's been a slight unjust in Arsenal's favour, a slight reworking of the events that happened when Arsenal played Tottenham fairly recently in the 3-2 game. I feel like that's being spun, that Tottenham were a bit unlucky or Tottenham played well in that game.
Completely agree with you.
They were
them 2 goals.
They were completely outclassed, completely battered. It was one-way traffic. There was only one team in the game. Okay, by the end, maybe you could be really generous and say Tottenham could have got a point and Arsenal made hard work of it. But for at least 80% of that game, it was men against boys. And then they've come to Stamford Bridge and they've got battered again. At some point, there needs to be some serious conversations about 3 people involved at Tottenham. And people don't want to have this conversation, Harry, and you can help me explore why. Why are people not focusing on the very limited managerial acumen of Ange Postecoglou, the incredible lack of impact of James Maddison on a regular basis? And at various points over the years, I've heard Heung-min Son compared to great footballers. When people talk about natural finishers and that, I've heard him spoken about compared to the very best. Woeful. But for some reason, Tottenham seems to be getting away with it.
I agree with you on all 3 points. I think Heung-min Son's best days are behind him. I don't think that's even a debate anymore. I think we've seen this coming for a little while, and we now see him at a point where he's been, yes, a great servant to Tottenham Hotspur. He brings huge commercial value to Tottenham Hotspur. There's no doubt about that either. But in terms of being a top-level forward, he's not there anymore.
And it shows you the impact of Harry Kane. Like, I remember there was some crazy spin going on. When Harry Kane just left and Postecoglou came in, there was actually a school of thought that was purveying the Tottenham fan base that suggested that they were better without him.
Yeah.
Like, not many Tottenham fans that I personally know would say this. They all acknowledge that Harry Kane was a world-class footballer. But there seemed to be this paradigm on social media that said, bringing in Maddison and bringing in Postecoglou actually makes us a better team. And it's just not true. You cannot lose a player of Harry Kane's quality, replace him with a fairly uninspiring footballer like James Maddison, and expect to maintain those standards.
What's happened to Ange Postecoglou? Or is this always been Ange Postecoglou? The limitations have always been there. Only now Tottenham are being punished for them.
I think a little bit of the 2 columns that you just suggested. I think that Ange Postecoglou has been found out. I think that people are aware of him, and his lack of pragmatism is really costing him. Like, if you think about a good... Do you know, I won't even make this a Chelsea example. I'll use an Arsenal example. I don't like Arsenal. I don't particularly like Arteta, and I certainly don't want Arsenal to succeed. But I'll use the example from Arsenal because I think it makes my point stronger, because I don't want it to be true, but it is. Mikel Arteta as a manager, whatever you think of his limitations, however good you think he has proved that being pragmatic works. So they go away to Man City, a game where a point is a good point. They're probably playing a team, certainly a manager that's better, and he would know that, playing a team that is at least more well-versed in success. So a point away from home is good, particularly when they've beaten them already. So he goes there and he defends and he gets a little bit Diego Simeone about it, and they get a point. Brilliant. Then they play Chelsea, and they look at Chelsea playing at home against Chelsea, and they know that we're vulnerable. So they go, do you know what? We can score 5 here. We can do So they play expansive open football. So it's pragmatic. Depending on the opposition, you play a different way.
It's adaptability,
It's adaptability and pragmatism, which is 2 key facets of being a good manager. Ange Postecoglou basically goes, do you know what, mate? We play our own way. And somehow that's seen as being a positive. I don't understand it. I think it's genuine idiocy to play in one incredibly predictable way without having any version of a plan B and expecting to somehow get results.
I think in order to have a plan A and be so stuck on it, you have to do plan A, much better than Tottenham currently do their plan A.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that Ange Postecoglou has. And for me, yes, that's where you want to get to maybe in a year, 2 years' time. But you have to accept that you're not there today. And this idea that Champions League qualification means nothing to Ange Postecoglou is ridiculous.
And his bosses won't agree with that.
Absolutely. That's the point.
Yeah.
Daniel,
I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Absolutely. I was saying to Jeremy earlier, when he knocks on Daniel Levy's door in the summer and says, I want X player, and he's missed out on Champions League qualification because he failed to adapt or adjust, what do you think the answer is going to be? We've seen this story 100 times.
Totally. And do you know what? The answer goes actually beyond that conversation. Suddenly the player the player doesn't want to come. The player doesn't want to go to a club that aren't in the Champions League. Why would he? You know, the player that Tottenham want to recruit will say, actually, I did like the idea of playing for Tottenham, but it now looks a lot less appealing because you're not playing in Europe's premier competition.
From a Chelsea point of view, I know you've been quite vocal in the past about Maurizio Pochettino, and you've said on numerous occasions that he's a Tottenham man, and that kind of bothers you, and I think it bothers some other Chelsea supporters. Does the fact that he's beaten Spurs twice now go some way in fixing that?
No, not really. I don't particularly like Maurizio Pochettino, but do you know what, Harry? I'm not the best person to ask here because I'm tribal and I'm not a rational man when it comes to talking about football. So, if Maurizio Pochettino could win a Champions League for Chelsea, I probably wouldn't really have him because he's so Tottenham in my book. But I am delighted that Chelsea won, and he said something for the first time that slightly warmed me. He has never really seemed like he's liked Chelsea. He's always been incredibly generous to Tottenham when he's spoken about them. The first time ever, he said something in his post-match interview yesterday. He basically said, "This is the happiest I've ever felt on a full-time whistle." Including, our performance was great. We had a clean sheet. We've beaten Tottenham. It was a good night.
All the boxes ticked.
But he said it was the happiest that he's felt at Chelsea. The result that has made him the happiest. And I thought, okay, that's for the first time ever, he's almost pledged some sort of loyalty for the fans to grasp onto. So look, the jury's still out on Pochettino, I believe. It was 6 days ago we conceded 5 against Arsenal, but they say a week's a long time in politics, don't they? It's certainly a long time in football because we've had 2 very impressive results. The fight back against Villa and then beating Tottenham. It's a good couple of days for Chelsea.
6th place is not out of reach for Chelsea. If they were able to sneak into the top 6...
That would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
It would be quite the turnaround, wouldn't it, from what we were talking about maybe 3-4 weeks ago. And in a weird way, I think it's better to finish on a high than it is to kind of start on a high and finish on a low.
I think that's definitely true. It would also keep him in a job, I think. But I'm desperate for European football. I really am. And I know that a lot of Chelsea fans will find the Europa League fairly uninspiring. I think they will scoff at the idea of being in that Conference League thing. But I'm not part of that. Harry, I know you'll empathise with this because we're of a similar age. We certainly approach football in a similar way. I remember Chelsea not winning any silverware. I'm not prepared to say the sentence, for example, I would rather not be in Europe. I would rather not be in a particular competition. I would love Chelsea to be in the Europa League. And if we're in it, I will be desperate to win it. And if we go out of it, I'll be heartbroken.
I also think as well in Chelsea's case, where you've got a side that has a lot of players when everybody's fit and available.
You need the games, man. You need the games.
Exactly. You need the games. The experience that comes with travelling to some difficult away venues. That'll only benefit that young squad. And I just think there's more positives to be in the Europa.
There's no point, is there, in being in the Champions League with the team that we have at the moment? If Chelsea would somehow... if Chelsea ended up in the Champions League this year, it would be completely ridiculous because we don't have the players that are capable of doing well in the Champions League. Whereas I feel like the Europa League, we have half a chance of winning. It's a great competition. I don't understand anyone that sneers at that competition, but it seems quite prevalent.
All right, so to flip that then, do you think that's the way Ange Postecoglou looks at Champions League qualification?
I think it's no, I don't actually, because Chelsea are a team of kids. Like, we really are a team of kids. I'm a Chelsea fan. I've been a Chelsea fan all my life. I talk about football all day. I'm very fortunate. There are players on our bench I never heard of. Do you know, like, these literal children. It's like genuinely one of them was a child, at school. You think we are in a very different place. Heung-min Son can't be thinking about tomorrow. Our star player, Cole Palmer, can. We're as a club, we're at a very different stage. And I think Tottenham almost need it because they had it. They had it. It was there for them this season. They were a shoo-in for it. And they've managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.